Hello. Send your messages in because we're taking messages up on YouTube.
We're live. Sent it. I have it. Welcome if you just joined us. This is Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's time for Freshly Pressed 981. As always, we take you through detailed analysis of stories making rounds in the dailies. And of course, when I say we, I'm not going to be doing this by myself. Shoko Martins is here with me this morning.
Good morning, Lagos, Nigeria, and world.
Yes, good morning. And also, Ugure is here with us this morning. Good morning, Ugure.
Morning, Mr. Baker.
Good morning again.
Hi, Shakwe. Good to see you again.
Shakwe.
Oh my
It's been
God,
a while.
I missed you.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Morning, Lagos. Happy New Year to everyone.
All right, Lagos, you can be a part of our talk by jumping in and sending your messages to 0809-444-0981. And also, you can, be a part of our conversation on YouTube. It's youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. So let's talk about the first story. Some might say this has been long overdue. Finally, FG releases Gazette declaring bandits terrorists. This is from the Punch newspaper. What are your thoughts about this?
I think you got it right out of the bat. Long overdue. Why this has taken so long is what a lot of people can't explain. Over the last, in fact, since the beginning of this administration, when we started seeing flurry of banditry across the country, I think it was just obvious that these were not just mere banditry in quote, or armed robbers or people just stealing. This is just pure terrorism, right? So because you have people going into villages, ransacking villages, threatening motorists for just no reason. Sometimes they don't even steal anything.
They
Just
go back
go
to
kill,
kidnapping.
burn, kidnapping, and all sorts of things. And these are just not things that you can classify as armed robbery, or things that you can maybe put on the purview of the police. This is just pure terrorism, right? So terrorism doesn't always have to be somebody, wearing a suicide vest and coming into, one market and blowing up everyone. No, terrorism is basically when you terrorize, people's, everyday lives. And I think I like the fact that, the Justice Taiwo actually even expanded this, further somewhere in here, and to include things like even marrying, forced marriage, kidnapping of married, mass abductions of school children and other citizens, castle rustling, enslavement, imprisonment, severe deprivation of physical liberty, torture, rape, sexual slavery, and forced prostitution, forced pregnancy, just to highlight how severe these crimes are to humanity. And so they're not just what you call criminal activities, they're terrorism.
Yes.
Right. And so it's not just the police taking you to court, it's the entire state, because that's what is declared. And it also means these also have connotations for the world as well, because then if you're branded a terrorist in a country, then it's likely that you're a terrorist around the world as well. So finally this has been done, and that the issue and order just sort of gives this the legal backing that we need, even though justice had already done that. But at least from the point of view of the presidency now, better late than never, like people would say, that this has been done. Why it's taking so long
Although
is something that
people
people
would
write about.
question the foot dragging about that has gone on
Yeah,
with
yeah.
regards to this,
I really
when
don't know.
This administration has been so quick to prescribe other groups
Exactly.
under the same label.
Exactly. So it's not even about even other groups. It's even banditry in general, right? Yeah. So I know, and this caused a lot of political furor, because at some point we were wondering whether this was some kind of tribal warfare, where some people on the other side of the country are declared terrorists, and then people who are doing similar similar things are not called terrorists, and then hiding under the cloak of armed robbery or things like that.
And
So
not only that, wasn't it? Didn't we have the story that was, or the narrative that kept being put out of these bandits are not from within the country; they're coming in from outside of the country. So
Exactly.
why still so slow to declare them as terrorists?
I'm not even bothered about things like that. I mean, you can do your investigation. You can say, "Oh, I'm not sure," why, but it's taking so long already. And I think they're just evidence upon evidence upon evidence that was out there that these things were being done internally. Yeah, you had some people outside as well, but these things were being done internally. These things, some of these things
Yes,
were
but
even
the narrative was
orchestrated.
that most of them were
Exactly,
from
exactly.
outside.
That was the initial excuse, So that's why I said books are going to be written about this, explaining why it took so long. I
But
mean,
now that they've been declared terrorists, though, do we see like an international intervention at some point in time?
I don't know about international invention. I mean, like how many terrorist activities, a
No,
lot
because we've
that
seen
occurs
with Boko
here.
Haram, a lot of people, a lot of countries. I mean, they've there's been some type of intervention. There's been some type of what's the word now? There's been some type of
What I
spotlight
expect
on them
United Nations
basically
to come
to
in,
say, hey, you know
or
what? We want to come and help out. We
Navy
want to come and
SEAls.
see. So I don't know.
I
Do we
don't think
see
so.
such a
I think first, more importantly, this is a huge deterrent because when you classify groups like this, I think they mentioned some of them as, and their activities as terrorism. Then it then means that it's not just the police going after them; it's the entire, you know, military
Military
and
might
whatever
agency.
as
approaches
well.
we have that can go after these
Hmm.
people. And then if there's any sort of arrangement we'll have with with foreign military organizations as well, for other countries, then that can also be used. They can be deployed because when you classify some activities as terrorism, then you can go at any length to nip it in the bud. And apart from that, too, even how you treat their cases when they are arrested, because at the end of the day, people are still, sent on the proven guilty, right? Even under even under suspicion of committing terrorist acts, right? So, but then how those cases are treated are different from, criminal cases. So that's how I'd say that. I don't know. I'm not sure you're gonna have black seals in here or
Now,
navy
it's
seals in here.
what I would like to see is going into the future, going forward, whether we're going to see any change, because with the kind of foot stacking that has gone into this, it will be interesting. Let's keep watching.
Yeah, you're right, and one thing that this government is very good at, and you've seen other stories, is sort of politicizing a lot of things and allowing politics, get into common sense, right? Common sense decision making, and I hope that by declaring some of these groups as terrorists, or their activities as terrorism, then this won't turn to some kind of witch hunt, right? Because I mean, how it's defined and how
Its
and they sort of explain it,
approach is
it's
going to
kind
be
of
different
broad, right?
entirely.
So
Interesting.
you can just start to sweep things under it, and so that's just a little bit of where we have to be very careful, but step in the right direction.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that. Let's move on to our next story. This one from Premium Times. It says Buhari insists on cattle grazing routes to resolve herders farmers clashes. Now, to put a background to this, President Muhammadu Buhari has restated his administration's commitment to bringing back the cattle grazing routes as a way of resolving clashes between herders and farmers. I mean, this has been a conversation that's been on too long as well. But what's your assessment about this?
I mean, it's Buhari's opinion. If there's one thing that this president is good at, and if you're watching from YouTube, you can see my hand, like good at
YouTube.com
basic
forward slash smooth 981 FM Lagos category there.
basically is being consistent at what he does, or his utterances, right? So whether times have changed or whether we're in a different world, he's usually consistent, and so he's been saying this for
Quite a
ages,
while now, like
right?
four
That yeah,
years.
and what a lot of people try to explain to him, and what perhaps he fails to understand, is that the world has changed. So if the Gazette of, was it 1960s or something, allowed for grazing routes and things like that, the world has changed. Nigeria of the 60s is no longer Nigeria of now, right? So you have a lot of development in a lot of towns, a lot of cities, and different communities have different priorities in terms of what they want to do with their land and all that. So saying that you think open grazing or whatever is actually or having grazing routes it's the solution to herder farmer clashes. I just think it's out of touch. But
People
Now,
have talked about
question.
ranches.
Question. If the president and his administration do actually want to go forward with this, and as he has stated their commitment to this, do you think we would see anything, considering the fact that 2023 is right around the corner?
Anything like what?
Any movement on this?
No, so I don't think anything is going to change because he actually doesn't have the powers to enforce this, and I
Okay.
think that's been proven several times. States do have the powers, right? So, I mean, you can have your gazette or do whatever you want. At the end of the day, states also have their own powers, and without getting the backing of state governors, you can succeed. And I think that's really what has been happening since 2015.
If the state governors do back him up, or if some of them do back him up, right, and they're talking about, allowing this to go, is there some type of way that we can look at? They can look at the options of ranches as opposed to open routes grazing.
Another conversation that's
No,
been
so
happening in
the state governors, mostly from the south, prefer ranching, right? And if you do a bit more research, you find out that is probably better for a lot of states, and also because of the way the economy is structured today, right? So rather than just have grazing routes, you know what I mean. So
Yes.
for a lot of governors, the preference is like, look, if you want to rear cattle, that's fine. Just like any other business, if you want to have your poultry, you go get your poultry farm. So if you want to rear cattle, go get your ranches and have your cattle feed on around your ranches. So I don't see in as much as this was very much politicized, I can tell you one thing for free, Coyote. In the next dispensation, my opinion is that this won't even be news again, right? Because one thing with Nigeria is that every president comes with his own,
Different agenda.
political agenda and narrative and arguments and politics that people argue a lot about. So here, this is just Buhari's opinion, and that's what this news is just capturing. Like I said, he said this over and over and over and over again. This is his opinion. So I'm not going to hold him. It's his opinion, the same way you have your own opinion and other governors have their own opinion. But again, like we always tell him, you are in the dark ages. It's not going to happen. People don't want it. So fine, it's your opinion, but people don't want it. And good enough, like I said, he doesn't have the powers to enforce it.
Now, interesting, Udre. Let's go to the next story, which comes in from the Guardian newspaper. And once again, we have, we want to get your thoughts on whether it's opinion and whatnot. So, Buhari rules out creation of state police, accuses states of causing imbalance. Now, his comments came in an interview on a television agency, and he said that state police is not an option. Find out the relationship between local government and the government. Are the third tier of government getting what they're supposed to get constitutionally? Are they getting it? And his stance, the president's stance, opposes that of Nigerian governors who have insisted that devolving police structures to state and local levels will reduce the security challenges facing the country. That's it.
Again, so this, just like the previous one, this was an interview that he granted to Channels TV. I think it aired yesterday or so. So this is his opinion too. And unlike the previous story, he does have most control over
Over this situation.
decision making, how this is decided, even though you would actually require the National Assembly or a constitutional change for this to happen. So it's not really in fact, it's not like he has the full powers, to be honest. It's not really a Buhari thing, it's a Nigerian thing, because to change this would require a lot.
Constitutional
Yeah, a lot.
reform.
And he does make a good point, but let's go back a little bit. The former APC, when they were in the opposition, a lot of the current APC leaders have always had preference for state policing.
Okay.
But now that they're in power, they're sort of like foot dragging on it, to use a Chappelle's word. And they have their reasons, and that's what usually happens when the government comes in and state policing doesn't actually work for your agenda. Then you just want to stick with the status quo. That's what typically happens. But let's look at it as Nigerians, and this is now my own opinion. I think that state policing, as a lot of people sort of construe it today, also has a lot to do with where you are in terms of your state of your economic development or political development, and the same pitfalls you have with the current federal policing one today, you're gonna have that with state policing, and that's basically what Buhari is saying here. That look, Look at how they, governors and local governments and all that, also how they deal with their local governments within their own states as well, and
Which
that
is
gives you an idea of what would happen when you have state policing. So the same way the federal government uses police for their own agenda, it's likely what might happen when you
With the
start to have
state police.
a lot of state police. That's just the sort of concern. So, but there's some kind of balance here that I see, and this is just my own opinion. To me, I actually think that state policing or policing should actually come from the people. So the people should actually elect who their police commissioners should be, or who their DPOs or whatever should be, just as you have in some countries. Because at the end of
For
the
every
day,
state?
yeah, that power has to come
so are you saying
from.
so that
This
we
is just my own
more
opinion.
accountability?
Yeah, I think so, because they have to be accountable to the people and not to anyone, right? So because the same thing you're running away from with federal policing, you're gonna counter it as well. That's for sure. Because like I said earlier, of where we are in terms of the maturity of our democracy, they would more likely than not do the same thing that the federal government that they accuse the federal government of doing with police. So that's just the issue. And of course, this all dovetails into the next story, because that's where this is really coming from.
Speaking of the next story, but first, let's take some messages. This one here from Binga says, government has declared bandits terrorists. But the more important question is, does the government have the will to go out and decimate these bandits? Don't forget, if you also want to be a part of our conversation, please send your messages to 0809-444-0981. Also, take your messages up on our YouTube platform. It's youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. Okay, like you mentioned, this next story segues into this one. This story segues into the next story, which is about the Magodo situation. So Southwest governors, SANS, basically attacked Malami, IGP, and also they fault the AGF generally. There's a talk about impunity. But let's put a background to this, just in case you missed out on the story yesterday. So the Southwest governors and some senior lawyers on Wednesday condemned the exchange of words between the Lagos State Governor, that's Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and a police officer at Magodo Phase 2 on Tuesday. So there was that back and forth. There were viral videos about this, But eventually, there's now that talk for state policing because of some type of impunity. What's your assessment on this?
This is a very, very touchy subject. So, one really has to be careful what sort of sides you're on. And that's because when a subject like this is, very sensitive emotionally to a lot of people, and of course involves a lot of money, you know, common sense is very, very difficult to be accepted here. So I think a few days ago, the governor went to Magodo, and he was trying to get the police to stop the enforcement of a Supreme Court judgment.
Yes.
Right? Exactly. So they were here to enforce, Supreme Court judgment, and but sometimes, as much as you have the law, you want the law to run its course, or judgments to run its course. There are also other considerations, here, because of the ramifications of delayed justice, right? This is justice that's been, perhaps delayed for years, and now things have changed. You have a lot of it. So there's something that you call in public interest as well. So
This is quite reminiscent of that first story in terms of what was due historically versus the climate that we're in now. And how
yeah,
things have
exactly. So this is a court case. I mean, don't want to go into the history of it. That has been there for decades, right? And over that period, you've seen people, buy land, build houses there, start lives. So it's just like saying maybe the, sorry, I have to use the U.S. as an example. Maybe the Indians getting a judgment against their occupiers, or maybe the Aborigines in Australia getting a judgment against their occupiers and telling all of them to leave, right? Because it's actually their land. So it's tough. It's a tough one. So, but back to the story. The police was there to enforce judgment for whatever reasons, political reasons, or whether it was just a Supreme Court judgment. And the governor was there and told them to leave, and that he was handling the situation in the best way he didn't fit. Because at the end of the day, he's the chief security officer of the state. And, there was no point enforcing a Supreme Court judgment that would lead to chaos, violence, and killings of people. It's just counterproductive. And the CSP also who was there refused and said, look, he has orders
From higher up,
from
you should
higher
speak to that
up,
person.
and he should speak to the person. And the governor went on and said, no, you call the. It was just a lot of back
So
and forth.
it goes down to the conversation. I mean, like you mentioned, the governor is the chief security officer of the state. So, I mean, was that necessary? And also, talking about
What was necessary?
I mean, the back and forth, the conversation. If the governor had told the CSP on the scene that call your boss and tell your boss that your men should evacuate this place. It should have been a direct conversation. I mean, it should have been just like maybe the IG as well, just respond and saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is the conversation. That's the
Also,
talk
we're
here.
talking about the federal and state push and pull because this is an order that came from a federal, yeah.
Yes,
From the Supreme
but then
Court. So you
it's
see,
the IG that has the powers to say, to tell the police officers there that they should leave. So if the conversation is had between the chief security officer, which is the governor and the IG, it should have been like a smooth conversation. Like, okay, you know what? This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it, as opposed to the back and forth. And this is what the governor's talking about.
it doesn't work like that. I think you need to understand.
And this
that
is what the governor's
there are a
talking
lot
about.
of there are a lot of powers here, and there's a lot of politicking. We don't live in a utopian environment where okay, I understand. It never happens like that.
Yeah, but I'm saying that
So-
this is what the governors are saying. The governors are saying there shouldn't have been this back and forth because if the CSP
Why
can
did they
defy the governor, then it goes to say that
No, so
they
so
don't have any
so
power.
here's the point. The CSP got an order from an IG.
Yes.
Right. So what could have happened here is just having common sense prevail. And like I said, when there are a lot of emotions and there are a lot of interest, it's always very difficult to happen. Right. So at the same time, you have some people say, look, you know what? Why didn't the governor perhaps call the IG before getting there, right? Or to sort this out. So why did everything have to happen right in there? You have some people also say, "Oh, this is just government political grandstanding," from all sides. But at the end of the day, what the issue here is that a Supreme Court judgment has been made, but there has to be a better way to resolve this issue, and it really can't be enforcing that Supreme Court judgment. It's just not going to work, and that's just the point. So, and the only way you can resolve this issue is through engagement. There's got to be a political solution to this thing. There's got to be engagement. There's got to be compensations. It just has to happen. I do not see if the federal government likes bringing the entire army in here, it's going to be very difficult to get things like this done because you also don't have the backing of the state government. So imagine if you had the backing of the state government in this case, what do you think will happen? Right. So I think using this as an excuse to to go back to state policing to me is just political talk. Just trying to distract us from the real issue. The real issue here is that there has been a judgment against Lagos State and
Well, the Lagos State governor has talked about it. It was in the news this morning. He's talked about relocating some lands or reallocating some lands to some people within that same area. So that's, from the conversations that they had yesterday. So it's still, the details are still a bit sketchy, but I imagine that they'll find a lasting solution.
Yeah, and like I said, the solution is not enforcement. That's not the solution. Perhaps maybe they're doing that just to get everybody on the table. But it's not the solution at all. They have to find a way to compensate people.
Well, that's
at
what
the
the
same time engage
allocation of
better.
land goes some way
It's
towards.
enough compensation.
All right, we're still taking more messages. Please send them to 0809-444-0981. Let's talk about debt servicing. This from the Punch newspaper, though. This one here says debt servicing gobs 76% of revenue. Experts and, of course, Buhari disagrees on borrowing. So to put context to this, the federal government on Wednesday disclosed that it spent 4.2 trillion on debt servicing between January and November 2021. Now, this sum represents 76.2% of the 5.51 trillion naira revenue generated during the period under review. So what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think those
Is it sustainable at this point when we keep on servicing debts over and over and over again?
It isn't because you do need revenue to go up. Nothing wrong in borrowing, to be honest, especially when you can pay, when you can meet your obligations. But why are we borrowing? Like we've always said on this program, we run budget deficit. We've been running the budget deficit for over a decade now. And a budget deficit means you spend more than you actually earn. And so if you're running a budget deficit, then you're obviously borrowing and you have to service those debt. Now the danger now is that we seem to be spending more on debt servicing compared to capital expenditure, which we actually need. And then we also are spending more on recurrent expenditure. So what that means is that a lot of the debt as well is finding its way into recurrent expenditure. So even as much as you actually are increasing capital expenditure spend, it's still not higher than what you're spending on recurrent expenditure and even debt service. And that's really the problem. I think I was checking the other day, we've probably done about 19 trillion in budget deficit over the last decade or so, 11 years or something. So incredible, huge amount. And a lot of the borrowing that has happened, it's mostly on, I think we're 38 trillion or thereabout, public debt as at September or so. So and then government revenue is also not tallying along. So that's the problem we have. And then the funny thing is that every year your budget is always increasing. 2022 is about 17 trillion.
Yes.
But your revenues are not actually going up. So that's the challenge we have. Like I said, to your question, is it sustainable? No, something needs to happen and really fast. And that's why probably also segues into the next story. Why they're trying to raise taxes for our
We'll get to that story in just a moment. So let's take some messages up on WhatsApp 0809 444 981. If we don't get through all your messages, don't you worry. Lagos Talks is coming up after this, and we will be reading out your thoughts. So Benga Akomi says Buhari is looking back instead of looking forward and proffering modern solutions to the problems of now. It's a signal that in 2023 we must be careful who becomes president then. Certainly not this kind of outlook, says Benga. And
Dan says, can the president be consistent in a policy the whole world has moved away from? That is backward consistency.
well, emphasis on the word how.
How can?
Yeah. And we've got this one in from, let's find out. Give me a second. Okay. Ali. Popsi Ali. Okay, he says, I'm 100% in support of the president's speech on state police. Definitely the governors would misuse them just as our local governments aren't functioning anymore. The 1963 Republican Constitution is a solution to the current Nigeria's problem. Let's go back to it if actually we still want to live together. It spelt out the functions of the central and state.
Okay, let's see. Let's quickly move on to our next story. We see a lot of messages still pouring in, but don't forget, we'll take them if we can't get those stories on, what's the word now? On Freshly Pressed 981. Real quick though, let's move on to the next story. This one here talks about new tax on carbonated drinks. It'll worsen the economy. This is according to experts. That's from the Punch newspaper.
The federal government introducing an excise duty of 10 naira per liter on all non-alcoholic, carbonated, and sweetened beverages. And as you can
I don't know.
What the kick? What's the word I'm looking for?
It's going to be bad.
Backlash. Yes.
Yeah, so man, calm down a bit. I don't know about worsening the economy. I think the previous story, if there's anything that's going to worsen the economy, it's if we continue to have budget deficit year after year
There's
and borrow more.
personal economy. There's company.
I know we're
economy,
getting there.
state
You know,
economy.
I know. So excise duties already exist on a lot of things. Exist on alcoholic drinks. Exist on cigarettes and things like that. So now they want to introduce it to carbonated drinks. So they want to charge an excise of 10 naira per liter on all carbonated drinks. Yeah. So
what does this mean?
A bottle of maybe Coke or something, I think is 50 cl or something like that. So I mean, if you do the math, you have an idea of how much that means, how much you're going to pay in extra when you're buying bottle of drink, favorite carbonated drink, exactly. Wow. Right. So, but this is, like I said, it's government trying to increase its own revenue so that it can also meet budget deficits. Nigerians consume a lot of carbonated drinks, and I think there was some report I read of one of the very popular ones. They made times their money in 2020 during the pandemic alone. So there's so much money in going that direction, but. Manufacturers will say, look, you're already taking VAT, you're already taking all the taxes. So why do you keep taxing these drinks? And their fear is that when they actually pass through this tax, so it's not like they are the ones paying for it. But then the fear is that that might reduce consumption. I don't think so, to be honest. And
So
the
it wouldn't
amount here
reduce
is not
consumption,
enough.
just it will increase the prices of.
Yeah, because they will increase the prices
So
of
Don't
let's-
those
worry, we'll
drinks.
go from
I want
35
to
CL
put
to
it on
15
in
CL.
layman's term for
See
people
how they
out
were
there
cutting
listening.
yam before?
So in layman's, we're totally out of time. But in layman's terms, for the people out there that really need to understand what numbers and figures work like, if it's 150 for a bottle, if it's 10% on every, how much would that be?
It's not 10% on every. They said it's 10 naira
10
per
naira per
liter.
liter.
So that's why I said a bottle of a regular fizzy drink is
50
maybe 50
CL would
CL
be
and things like
five.
that. So do your math. How many CL makes 1 liter and all that and you get. But like I
Wow.
said, I think it's actually not a very significant sum. As well. But there's something else in the story. I know we're out of time that I thought was interesting, and the FIRS said that they're already working with Amazon, which is the world's largest e-commerce site, to ensure that when Nigerians are purchasing items from Amazon, that we do pay our taxes there. So rather than pay
So fun.
US taxes or whatever. So because or else. You know what's going to happen? They just block their IP address, just the way
Oh,
they
wow.
do with Twitter, and then people will start to now use VPNs and things like that. So, but that's really that's what the world is like today, and I think other countries do it. So I think it just makes sense that government also explores various means of trying to
Generating
increase
revenue as well.
their own revenue.
All right, thank you so much, Ugudre. Thank you for all the detailed analysis. And Lagos, there is more to come. You can find Ugudre up on social media. He's at Ugudre across all platforms, and you can take the conversation on social media with him
One
as well.
of the easiest handles to remember.
Exactly. It's one word, really, just one word. Stay with us. There's more to come in a few more minutes. It's going to be time for Lagos Talks Night One, where you, Lagos, get to talk to us.
Oh, wow.
Wow, I thought you guys had like these 5 minutes